My name is Chris Hoover. I'm an alcoholic. I have a sobriety date, August 16, 2002. I have a home group, which is the Midtown group, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have a sponsor. He knows where I am today. And we just talked yesterday. And I'm grateful that I get to sponsor other men in Alcoholics Anonymous. So those are sort of, 3 or 4 cornerstones of my sobriety. And so I'm grateful that I have them. And I don't think I'd be sober today if I didn't have those 4 things. And I want to thank Dave for asking me to come out, even though he's not here. So, I'm just a drunk that got on a list somewhere, and then you guys called me. I'm not an authority in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't have any, I'm not special in any way. I don't have any degrees in anything, actually. You know what I mean? I'm just a guy who drank a lot and totally fucked up their life to the point where I needed help. This meeting seems like it's already too big for the room, which is good. I love coming to new meetings. I love young people's meetings. I got sober in a young people's meeting. I wasn't young when I got there, but I still felt young, young at heart, and I felt like it was a good place for me to get sober because I was scared of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was scared, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do for fun? I felt like, I'd be like a Jenga champion or something like that, or like I would like master like some board games or something. The thought of it literally drove me crazy. Like, you're not drinking. What the fuck do you do? If you're not drinking. So it's always good to travel. It's always good to see, young people's meetings alive and well. And just as a show of hands, I'm just trying to see where everybody's at. Raise your hand if you have over a year of sobriety. Good. So we got a lot of new people here. It's awesome. And, the book tells me that I'm supposed to tell you guys in a general way what it used to be like for me, what happened to me, and what it's like now for me. And I think that process of, relating is really important in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that process of identification. Because I had talked to all sorts of professionals before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. Therapists, psychologists, teachers, judges, lawyers, all of them, my family, all of them said the same thing. Why don't you just stop drinking so much? And if you're like me, you probably came up with some sort of excuse why you drank, But the truth is that I had no idea why I was drinking, And to me, when someone would ask me that question, it just infuriated me. Because it's like, clearly, I can't stop drinking, Like, if you understood what drinking did for me, you wouldn't ask me to stop, You wouldn't ask me. And so, that process of identification, I think, is critical in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because if you can't relate to what's going on with me, and I can't relate to what's going on with you, then I don't trust that you'll have a solution for me, And that's what's different about people in Alcoholics Anonymous, because they didn't tell me what I needed to do. They just told me about their alcoholism and what they did to stay sober. And in that, I related, So hopefully some of you guys will relate tonight, and some of you may not, I'm sure they're going to get another speaker next week off the list. Maybe they'll do a better job. And so I grew up I was born in Washington, D.C. I grew up just outside the Beltway in a town called Kensington. And, I hear a lot of talks in AA, and I hear a lot of I was a success story, and I was this, I was that. I did so good in school. I was playing all these sports, and then I started drinking, and my life went downhill. You know, I mean, my life was pretty much already going downhill. You know what I mean? I was getting kicked out of grade schools. I was a troublemaker. I was, you know, before I had the language that the book gave me to describe it, I was always restless, irritable, and discontented. You know, always. You know, wherever I was, I didn't want to be there. And I got kicked out of. I got kicked out of 4 elementary schools. Somehow I graduated high school, and I probably, you know, I was probably a late bloomer in terms of drinking. But I had a few beers in high school, but nothing serious, you know. And I was involved in some other things, and you know, it just didn't stand out to me, you know. But I got an internship at this screen printing place my senior year in high school, and I was printing T-shirts all throughout that senior year. And you know, I bought some equipment from this guy, and I started printing T-shirts in my bedroom at my mom's house. And this, I'm dating myself, so this is like 1991. And you know, I started printing. I was going to like a lot of like raves, like illegal raves in the D.C., Virginia area. I was going to a lot of parties. I started printing T-shirts for raves. You know, like I just would print a bunch of T-shirts and then go to the rave and sell them. And I guess nowadays they call them festivals, raves, festivals, same fucking thing. You know what I mean? A lot of people doing drugs and a lot of you know, techno music or whatever they're playing these days. I have no idea. And so, you know, I'm doing this. I'm making money, and you know, I'm not even. I think I'm 18, and you know, this is where I start getting into drinking, and you know, for me, it was just like the whole world had opened up. You know, I mean, I felt so constrained while I was in high school and middle school and grade school. I just felt like everyone was trying to control me. You know, I just didn't fit in well. I didn't, you know, I had no plans to go to college or anything like that. That was not on the radar for me. And so I you know, I'm printing T-shirts in my mom's bedroom, in her house, in my bedroom, and she is like, "You got to move out of here," you know. One day I had like a pallet full of T-shirts, like a tractor trailer come down my street and unloaded like a skid of like cases of T-shirts, and my mom was like, "That's it, you gotta get the fuck out of here." You know what I mean? And so I moved out with a friend of mine in his house, and we just started partying, you know, we just started drinking. And we were going to the clubs, and you know, going out in DC, going to all these underage clubs, and going to these, you know, all these raves all over the place. And it was like an exciting time, you know, and you know, my first drunk was, oddly enough, in a club in Montreal, Canada. You know, I had a friend of mine that was DJing up there, and I was 18 years old. We drove all the way up to Montreal, and you know, I've got this little business I'm doing, and you know, we were in this club, and you know, my buddy's like, you know, what do you want to drink? And I'm sort of like an amateur, you know what I mean? So I don't really know. You know, I'm like anything but a beer. I knew I didn't like beer, you know, because it just, you know, I'm not knocking people that drink beer, you know what I mean? But for me, it just didn't. I didn't like it, you know what I mean? And so he's like, what about a vodka cranberry? And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, I like cranberry juice. Sounds good, you know. And how bad could it be, right? And so the waitress starts bringing these drinks, and at the time I'm playing pool, you know, on this pool table they had like hot pink felt on the pool table, which I've never seen before or since. You know, maybe it's a Canadian thing. I got no idea. You know, so I've already told you that my normal state is restless, irritable, and discontented. So I was a very competitive pool player. You know, like I wasn't very good. I'm just saying I was competitive. You know what I mean? So I always wanted, you know, there was money on the table. This night was no different. I mean, I was the kind of guy that if I was playing pool and I like missed a shot, I would freak out. You know what I mean? And I would freak out. I might hit the stick on the table, might break it. I might yell at someone walking by that's got nothing to do with the game, you know? And it was very erratic, you know? And so I'm playing pool. There's money on the table. You know, I'm super competitive. And waitress starts bringing over these drinks. I'm just crushing them because to me, they just taste like fruit juice, you know? And I was probably like my maybe third or fourth, you know, drink in, and it started like coming over me, you know, like your palms get sweaty, you know, your chest gets warm, the room gets fuzzy, you know, like the light seems softer. I mean, it's hard to explain, you know, unless you've had that first drunk, you know what I mean? And I remember my shoulders just kind of relaxing a little bit, and, you know, I just noticed that I was not second guessing my shots, and they were all going in, man. I mean, it's like magic, you know? And at some point throughout the game, I forgot there was money on the line, that never happened. You know what I mean? I always knew there was money riding on a game. And that was a big deal for a guy who's restless, irritable, and discontented. And wherever I was, I wanted to be somewhere else, you know? I was actually enjoying the moment that I was in, you know? And the funny thing about drinking that first time is that, and this is all, you know, hindsight looking back, I had no idea how uncomfortable I was sober, you know, until I had that first drink. And, you know, it's not like my life changed at that moment, you know, I mean, it you know, in the long run, it would change. That moment would change my life. And I tell that story because, for two reasons. One, it's my story, you know. And two, I think it's odd that I remember that experience in such detail, you know. I think only alcoholics remember that. I mean, I don't remember the first time I drank Coca-Cola, you know, or the first time I ate a slice of pizza. I have no fucking idea. You know what I mean? And the reason I don't know that, and the reason it doesn't matter to me, is because it did nothing for me, you know? Alcohol solved something. It solved a problem in me that I didn't even know really needed to be solved, you know? It gave me a feeling of ease and comfort that I wasn't even sure I was looking for up until that moment I felt it, you know? And I think that's unique to alcoholics, you know? I mean, my mom drinks a glass of wine every night, you know? That's it. You know what I mean? I don't think she gets out of alcohol what I get out of it, you know? Clearly she does not, because she only drinks a glass, you know? And sometimes she leaves it half full, which infuriates me. You know what I mean? Just drink the whole fucking glass, you know, for once in your life, you know what I mean? I'll go up to her room, she's old, she'll have a half glass of wine that's been there for 3 days, you know what I mean? Kills me. And so, you know, I'm going to tell a few stories sort of at the beginning of my drinking, the middle of my drinking, and the end of my drinking. And so, you know, if you're kind of, you know, self-employed, you're making money, and I was making a lot of money for 18, 19-year-old kid. You got a lot of free time on your hands. And, you know, I was partying, like, right out of the gate, probably 3 or 4 nights a week, you know. And if you live close to the city, there's a lot to do. I mean, there's Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then there's always something going on a Monday night, like, you know, half-price drink somewhere or whatever, you know, some happy hour, you know. And what we used to do, you know, I'd say on a good day, my routine looks something like this. You know, I would get off work, and I like to go to 7-Eleven. I get a super big alt cup. I fill it up with some ice, fill it up with a little soda, and I head right over to the liquor store, right in my neighborhood, right over to this liquor store. And I would go in there and load up for the weekend, you know. And maybe this could have been a Thursday night, you know. And I would load up for the weekend. And in this grocery store, they had these like little miniature shopping carts. I don't know if any, you know, in this liquor store, they were just like tiny. They looked like little baby shopping carts. I don't know what they were for. I don't know if they still have them. But I would just grab one of those things and just wheel it in there, you know, and just start loading up, you know. I was pretty much a vodka and rum guy. That's pretty much mostly what I drank, you know. I might deviate from that, you know, if necessary. Like if there's nothing left, I'll drink gin, you know. If I'm really desperate, I'll drink NyQuil, you know what I mean? I don't care, you know. There have been many occasions, liquor stores closed, there's nothing really open, you know, beer, wine's done. NyQuil works. NyQuil works. And so I would load up for the weekend and I you know, bag it all up, get in my car. And I'm not, I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I'm a guy that felt better just having the alcohol. You know what I mean? Like I already could feel relief, even though I hadn't drank any, you know. And I'm not a guy that waits to get home, you know, and I'm going to mix a drink right there in my car, you know. There's no chance I'm going to wait till I get home. So I crack that bottle open, you know, you hear that little, and then you can smell it, you know, and I already know it's going to be a good night. You know what I mean? I have no plans yet, but I already know it's going to be a good night. And I just pour it into that super big alt cup, all the way up to the top, you know. I give it a little shake, a little swirl. I mean, it's all liquor anyway. I mean, there's nothing to shake up. And I mean, it's like 44 ounces of liquor, you know what I mean? A little bit of Coke, you know what I'm saying? And this is like the primer drink. This is the drink that gets me home, get in the shower, make some phone calls, see who's doing what, where are we going to meet up, you know. And we used to like to, so that's a drink. It's 5 o'clock, you know, 5:30, you know, in the afternoon. You know, we would meet up at these shitty little bars in Bethesda or Rockville first, and we would usually know the bartender, and we would drink a bunch for free. And, you know, and then we would go downtown, we'd go to the clubs, you know. And even at this point in my drinking, you know, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that has to have a plan. Like, if I'm going out Thursday, I need a plan for Friday, Saturday night, Saturday during the day, you know, Saturday night, Sunday, where am I going to recover, you know what I mean? Like, I need like a 3-day plan, you know what I mean? Not just a one-night plan. And we would go out and we would drink and, you know, hang out at the clubs and do other things, you know, and, you know, smoking weed at that time. That's pretty much all I was doing, just drinking, smoking weed back then. And then we would go to after-hours parties, you know, like, you know, the clubs closed down at 2:30 in D.C., so where are we going to go from 2:30 to 6 a.m., you know? And this is where I started noticing, you know, a difference between what I was doing and my, like, other friends, you know what I mean? Like, it always seemed like everybody was doing what I was doing, you know what I mean, until I look back on it, you know? And last call, right, is a great, like, marker for, like, normal drinking, abnormal drinking, right? Because we would be at the club and I'd be drinking with these guys and we'd be drinking drink for drink, you know what I mean? We'd be totally smashed, you know, totally fucked up. But something happened, like at last call, some of my friends, they would actually go to the bar and get a last drink. That was it. They had every intention of going home once we hit that parking lot at 2:30 in the morning, you know what I mean? Me, you know, last call was like halftime. You know what I mean? It was like, all right, you know, first half's over, where are we going? You know what I mean? And, you know, it's a great marker to see what's normal and what's abnormal, you know? And so we would go to these after-hour clubs in D.C. back in the mid-'90s. There's like Club Reds and all these other places that you could drink and party and do all kinds of weird shit. And I did it all, you know? And that's what I would do. So So I'm doing that, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and I would be coming home on like a Sunday morning from partying literally 36 hours straight, and I'd be coming up Wisconsin Avenue, and people would be like coming down Wisconsin Avenue, maybe to go to the mall or like hang out with their families and stuff like that. And I just remember being like, I would like walk into a 7-Eleven and just be so cracked out, from partying, and seeing like normal people in the morning, like drinking coffee and they're reading papers and like normal shit. And I used to look at them with such disdain, I'd be like, look at these fucking losers, What a bunch of losers, Just hanging out with their fucking kids. I bet that's miserable. God, gotta go here, go there. Oh, awful, awful. They probably have a 9-to-5 job. They're probably miserable. And I would just judge them and feel I would pity them, And meanwhile, I am a mess, Haven't slept in a couple days, I'm a mess, And that's like my first 5 years of drinking, 3 or 4 years of drinking. It was like that, looked like that. And, and then I started, I sold that business, I made some money, and I started working, I had taught myself some skills in that time, from having that business. And I started working for these other printing companies, and I was making good money, and I think like a lot of us, alcoholics, we can get good jobs. We can talk our way into a job, whether we show up or start cutting corners once we're in there is a whole other story. But I could always get a good job. And but the problem is that now I'm working this 9-to-5 job. I'm like one of those guys I judged, you know what I mean? But I'm still partying like I don't have a job, you know what I mean? So I'm still partying all night long, and I'm not even sleeping. I'm going straight to work. And if you're kind of doing these things, you might need some help. So I started doing, amphetamines and cocaine and, crystal meth and stuff like that. I used to have, I like to mix it up, you know what I mean? And just to get through the day, just to get through the night, get up, get through the day, and drinking all the time, drinking in the morning. I mean, drinking for me, and the reason I identify as an alcoholic is drinking for me was the big show. It's the big tent. There are a lot of side shows going on, you know what I mean? But drinking was always the big show. It was always there. And so I'm trying to hold on to jobs, and I'm doing a piss poor job, and I get fired from jobs here and there, and I'm sort of bouncing around, and I'm just really miserable, and my drinking and drug use is, skyrocketing, and eventually I had this job. I landed this really good job down in D.C. Their offices were at the Watergate. There's a consulting firm called the Advisory Board. It was a very good job, you know what I mean? And this was the last job I was probably going to have for 6 years until I got sober, And I'm a mess, at this point. I mean, I'm just a mess. And I'm taking the Metro because I lost my license. And I'm taking the Metro to work. And I cannot, because I'm so hopped up on amphetamines, I have to get off the Metro at Metro Center, walk upstairs, and smoke 3 cigarettes, then get back on the train and continue on my way to work. You know what I mean? That's literally, I do this every day. Totally normal. You know what I mean? Totally normal thing to do, right? And so I'm at this job, and I don't talk to anyone, and I start off really well like we all do. I mean, they don't know I'm on crystal meth, right? So they think I'm really efficient with my work, and wow, you're really fast, man. You're getting a lot done. I'm like, yeah. And I'm kind of a big guy, so I was a big guy then too. I was probably kind of the fattest cokehead I knew, you know what I mean? And it's the middle of February, and people are wearing like sweaters in the office, and I'm just like sweating bullets. You know what I mean? Just like dripping sweat. And so it's odd, you know what I mean? You think you don't stand out, but you do, you know? You think you're doing a good job of hiding it, but you're not really, you know what I mean? And everyone would leave for lunch, you know, they asked me for a little while until they were just like, don't ask that guy, he's not going to go to lunch with us, you know what I mean? And I would see them all go to lunch. They were going to like, I don't know where they went. I never went with them. I imagine they were going to like Subway or something like that, you know what I mean? Where normal people go for lunch, you know what I'm saying? And I used to watch them all walk out, and I would go to this like 4-star restaurant in the Watergate and order 2 vodka tonics and a steak, right? Every day. Because when you are, you know, this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but you told me I could, so I'm going to talk about it. When you're living on like amphetamines, when you live on amphetamines for like a long period of time, you have to train yourself to eat. Otherwise you die, you know what I mean? And nobody wants that. I didn't want that, you know? So all I could eat was steak. That's like it. That's all I could eat while I was on these, you know, a lot of cocaine and crystal meth, right? So I ordered 2 vodka tonics, a steak, and I, you know, just sit there in a restaurant by myself at lunchtime, eating this food, watching these people go by, and guess what I think? They're so lame. Look how lame they are. They're so stupid. Going to fucking Subway, dude. God. You know? And I love Subway now. I mean, I just ate there today, actually. So, I don't know why you needed to know that, but there you go. And so I, you know, here I am again, you know, just judging these people. I still think I'm awesome, even though all evidence is pointing to the opposite. I'm not that awesome, you know. I'm actually like a weird dude who sweats a lot and totally antisocial and won't go to Subway. That's the guy. I'm that guy at work, you know what I mean? Who does his work really superhumanly fast, you know what I mean? And one day I come in and I'm real hot, man. I'm sweating my ass off, you know what I mean? And it's like January, you know. And I go to this closet, this like, you know, janitorial closet, and I see this like fan, and it's, you know, for like a split second, I'm like, God, that's a really big fan, you know, and it was one of those industrial fans that you use in like warehouses, you know what I mean? And I was like, well, fuck it, man, I'm hot as shit, dude. So I just wheel it over to my cubicle, and I'm telling you, man, these aren't the high cubicles either. They're like the low ones that you can basically see everybody's head, you know what I mean? And I just plug it in and turn it on, man. And it's like, and it's like blowing people's shit everywhere. I'm getting the looks, like people are like, you know, like they don't say anything because it's like, it's so weird that you almost don't even you're scared to say something, you know, like, you know. I'm so out of my mind. I just sit down and I keep doing my work. And a couple hours later, they called me into the office, you know, and you know, everyone's had this moment, you know, where you're just kind of defeated. You like know what's coming. And I was just like, I know, I'll get my stuff. Don't worry, I'll be out of here soon. You know what I mean? And they didn't disagree with me. You know what I mean? So they let me go, so I'm assuming I made the right choice there. They weren't like, no, whatever, we were going to talk about tomorrow's meeting. No, they didn't say that. They were just like, okay, good, you know. And so that was the last job I was going to have for 6 years until I got sober, you know. And so I'm unemployed, and you know what a guy like me does, and you know who's got the entrepreneurial spirit that I do. I started selling narcotics. You know what I mean? I started selling ecstasy. And because I could. You know, I had a connection, and I wasn't like, I want to be an ecstasy dealer when I grow up. You know what I mean? That's not what I said. I mean, I was just convenient. It just happened. And, you know, in the late 90s, you could make a lot of money. You know, and that's what I was looking to do. And so I started doing that. And turns out I was pretty good at it. You know what I mean? And at least that's what I thought. Eventually, about a year and a half later, I was federally indicted. That's the long and short of it, Federally indicted, and I got arrested. And this is not the first arrest of mine. I've been arrested for possession and, that kind of stuff, and little stuff. Nothing big. And the guys came in, the jump out squad came in with their MP5s, and they were all ninja looking guys with black masks and stuff, and they came busting in my house, and they hit me and butted me with a gun. I come to, on the floor, hogtied. I guess there were a lot of people in my house. I was having a little party, so I guess they ran out of handcuffs. So I was zip tied, hogtied to the floor, and I come to, and this SWAT guy's lifting up his mask, eating the pizza I just ordered. I said, dude, what the fuck, man? And my next meal was not that good, so bologna and cheese, stale green bologna, and I tell you what, man, for a lot of people, and I was in the news. This was 1998. This is Montgomery County. I was in the news. They did Fox 5 stories. They had news cameras out there, and I was in the paper. I was in follow-up stories on Channel 4. My whole family found out about what I was doing because they saw me on the news. They saw that I was arrested, and they had no idea what I was doing because I didn't go over and visit them that much. I lived probably 5 minutes away from them. It had been years since I had visited. And so, a lot of people would be in that situation and say to themselves, okay, this is bad, federal indictment, not looking good, why don't I just chill out, why don't I just ease off the gas a little bit here, and I wanted to do that, I wanted to do that, I recognized that, okay, this is a problem, I have a federal indictment now. This is a serious situation, But the minute I bonded out on a $100,000 bond, 10%, the minute I got in that car, someone had a fucking bottle and a blunt, and I was smoking weed and drinking. The minute I got out. And if you ask me about it, like, this is the time I should be drinking. You know what I mean? I've got a serious problem on my hands. How am I going to solve it? And I relate to Bill's story. Bill, the story is when the stock market crashed, everyone was like jumping out of buildings. Not Bill, right? Bill started drinking and he's like, fuck this. I'm going to find out how I can make some money here. And he went back at it. He went back to work. That's what drinking did for me. It's like I felt dejected, demoralized, and like hopeless. I started drinking, and then the idea factory started going. Not that I ever had any good ideas, but it felt better knowing that at least I'm going to implement something. You know what I mean? And I just kept drinking. And to make a long story short, they offered me a plea bargain because I threatened to take it to trial, and they gave me a plea bargain on some marijuana. I had like 8 pounds of marijuana also in my room, and I took that charge over the ecstasy, and because they couldn't pin that one on me, and rather than me walking away from it scot-free, they gave me a plea bargain and they got me on the marijuana. So I did some time. I got out. Nothing changed, and now I'm on probation. And I'm dodging urinalysis and probation officers and all this stuff, and I'm not, I can't stop drinking. You know what I mean? And now I'm like, I'm trying to. If anybody's ever played the 72-hour game, right? It's like I've got 72 hours before I have to take a urinalysis, so I'm gonna party all night tonight, but I have to stop doing cocaine at midnight so that Tuesday I can piss clean. I mean, who stops doing cocaine at midnight? Like, nobody in the history of mankind has ever stopped doing cocaine at midnight. You know what I mean? If you have, come talk to me. I want to know how. You know what I mean? So, I'm failing these drug tests and all this stuff, and it's not long before I violate, and then, I'm doing a couple years, and He gave me back some of that time. And this is really where, sobriety started for me, is that, I was locked up for, at least for me, long enough to really get off all the stuff. I mean, I was on all kinds of, I detoxed from alcohol, all the pills that I was on. I was doing a lot of prescription stuff too. And I was finally like totally sober, in this, wearing this green jumpsuit, eating food out of a compartmentalized tray every day, just incarcerated, you know what I mean? And being locked up is not a scary thing, You get used to it very quickly, you know what I mean? And that's the scary thing about being locked up, is that you get used to it, And that's was scary to me. I mean, I had gotten used to going to sleep with the smell of, rotten feet and, like bleach in my nose, from the cheap cleaning products that they use, I'd gotten used to falling asleep with doors slamming and keys like jingling all throughout the night. And I mean, I had gotten used to it, I mean, being locked up is fairly easy. You've got no responsibility. I mean, let's be honest, you know what I mean? I had bills, but I couldn't pay them. So who gives a shit, you know what I mean? You just play dominoes and cards and you watch UPN, you know what I mean? It's like, it literally is not a big deal, you know what I mean? And, but I knew that what scared me was not the situation I was in, but the day I walked out of there, because that day was coming. And I knew that if nothing had changed for me, that I was going to go right back and do the same thing I'd always done. And I started going to AA meetings while I was in there. And this old guy used to bring meetings in there. And he helped me, He gave me a big book. And he had me read some things. And I read the doctor's opinion. And I related to it, I related to that part where it talks about how we're restless, irritable, and discontented unless we can again experience a sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. And that made sense to me, because I had gone to some AA meetings before, and this is what I saw. This is what I observed. And maybe if you're new tonight, maybe you observed, you're thinking the same thing. I would walk into these AA meetings, and I'd see a lot of happy people that weren't drinking. I'm assuming they're not drinking because it's an AA meeting. And they're happy and they're joyous and they seem like they're laughing. But I'm not drinking and I'm not happy about it, That's what I saw. I see happy people not drinking and then I'm there not drinking and I'm fucking miserable, I could claw someone's face off at any moment, And so what I thought, the natural conclusion to that is that whatever's wrong with them is not wrong with me. I have something else wrong with me. Their problem is not what I have. Because they seem happy not drinking. And the truth is that I just didn't understand alcoholism. I hadn't read anything in the book. I didn't understand it. And so when I read that, the doctor's opinion, I got it. See, if you're new tonight, you might think you're here because you have a drinking problem. That's actually not true. If you're here tonight, you have a problem with living sober. Drinking's the solution. Drinking was always the solution for me. I never had a problem drinking. Drinking was the easiest thing I ever did, Living sober out in that world, stone cold sober, that's the real challenge, right? And that's where Alcoholics Anonymous steps in. And so I got out of there and I was over at this pre-release center, this work release program. And that's where I met my sponsor. And I think this is a very critical point for me. He came into the facility. He was visiting somebody else there. He started chatting with me. He told me his story, right? He told me what happened to him, similar to what I'm doing tonight. He told me, how he was living today, what he was doing. And it didn't make sense to me because the story that he told me and the guy that was standing in front of me were clearly two different people in my mind, And that's what got me. It's like, because I wanted to know, how do you go from that guy to this guy? You know what I mean? How do you make that transformation? How do you go from being the guy that you said you were in Spanish Harlem up in New York to a dude that's sitting in front of me now that's got a job as a lab tech. You know what I mean? How did that happen? You know? And so I asked this guy to be my sponsor because clearly he had crossed that bridge, right? He knew the drinking game, he knew the drug game. Now he was living a different way. How did he do that? That's what I wanted to know. And I don't think having a sponsor is that. I mean, now that I've been sober for a while, I don't think it's that weird, actually. If you're new tonight, you might think, I'm not getting a sponsor. There's no fucking chance I'm going to let a guy tell me what to do. You know what I mean? Like another man tell me what to do. Even though if you're like me, I had those opinions, but I had no evidence to stand on myself to say that I knew what I was doing. I mean, my life was a mess. There was no chance that I could say to anyone, don't worry, man, I've got it. I've got all this under control. We're going to square this away in no time. Like, there's no chance. I couldn't even fake it. You know what I mean? And, and I don't think it's that weird. A lot of smart people in the world, heads of states, presidents, scientists, Nobel Prize winners, all these people have something in common, right? Which is they all seek counsel from other people. You know why they do that? Because they're smart. Only idiot alcoholics think they have all the answers. And I was that guy, For years, I was like, nah, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out, Every year, my life got worse. No, I'm going to double down. I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Double down, figure it out. Life got worse. You know what I mean? And so I was done with that game. And I said, I'm just going to listen to this guy. And we started working the steps right away. He did not waste any time with me. And, for me, the transformation happens in working the steps, right? Just coming to meetings is good, but I'm just the same guy, just not drinking. You know what I mean? And for me, taking the steps is what actually made that transformation from the guy I was to the guy that I am today. And the first thing he had me do was do a fourth and fifth step. And if you're like me, taking an inventory is a bizarre situation. You know what I mean? I don't know if anybody... How many people here have done a fourth and a fifth step? Raise your hand. So few. Some people, it's on the list of things to do. Maybe you're like, fuck that. I'm never telling anyone anything. You know what I mean? It's bizarre, I'm not going to go into it because there's a lot of new people here. But I did a fourth and fifth step. I made amends. I did an eighth and ninth step. I did all the things that seem weird and unfamiliar to a new person in Alcoholics Anonymous. It just didn't, nothing, being in AA seemed so opposite from the life I had lived. Everything was just weird, It just didn't make any sense. Nothing made any sense until I did it and then had the experience, Alcoholics Anonymous is like that, You just gotta, it doesn't even matter what I thought about it. All that mattered is that I did it. And then I had the experience that related to it, You can't figure this stuff out. It's impossible. I mean, taking an inventory is foreign to a guy like me, I'm going to write these resentments and then I'm going to write my part. Like, what are you talking about, my part? I mean, I never looked at that, It's not like me and my boys were out drinking and raising hell and getting in fights and breaking windows. Not once did anyone be like, hold on, man. What was our part in this disaster tonight? You know what I mean? No one said that. And if they did, I would have punched them in the mouth. You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to be hanging around a guy like that, And so it's just foreign. It was a foreign concept to me. And I got involved in an active young people's group. I was 29 years old when I got to AA. Certainly not young. But I needed that. I needed to know that I was going to have some fun too, I needed to know that I wasn't just going to be sitting around a table drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes with old people. You know what I mean? And I got involved in a lot of service. I got involved in a lot of fellowship. I got involved in a lot of service. I worked the steps the way my sponsor had, outlined them for me to do, and things got better, slowly but surely. I lost jobs in sobriety. I mean, my life was like downhill, right? This is my life, trending downhill, right? Losing jobs, drinking, federal indictment, prison, right? Sobriety, here's the point I get sober. Here's my life, still trending downwards, you know what I mean? It was like a train wreck. It was hard to stop the train, you know what I mean? It took some time. And I would get jobs in sobriety. And working sober is different than working fucked up. I just want to tell you that. I mean, I would get so angry at my bosses. I mean, they would say one thing to me, and I'd be totally offended. I'd be like, what the fuck did this guy just say to me? You know what I mean? Like, I would have visions of murdering my bosses. You know what I mean? And I would call my sponsor, and he'd be like, look, man, just chill out. You don't have to kill him. Let's just get to the meeting. I can promise you're going to feel better. You know what I mean? And he was right. And every day it was little evidence that AA worked. Like, I didn't have to kill anyone. I did lose a few jobs because of my mouth. I used to, I can still be that way today. So let people know how I feel. In a very abrupt way. But eventually, I learned how to be an employer in Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned how to be a son to my mother. I learned how to be a brother to my sisters. I learned how to be a friend. Little by little, AA taught me how to live sober. And that's the problem, right? How to live sober. How to not feel restless, irritable, and discontented every second of the day. That's the point. And AA started showing me how to do these things. And it took a long time. It took a long time. It took a long time to get where I was. It's going to take a long time to get back. And I don't even want to say back. Back doesn't even do it justice. I mean, I don't want my old life back. I don't want it. AA gave me a brand new life. And the things that are in my life today, I don't have a lot of money. I'm not rich. You know what I mean? I've got some things, and that's nice. But it really doesn't mean anything to me. The things that matter to me today are the relationships I have in my life with my friends and my family and the people that love and trust me. That's what matters, because I was not that guy. I was not that guy. I was not the person you called when you needed something done, because there was no chance I was going to be there. And a lot of that has changed for me. And if you're new tonight, you're probably thinking, fuck that. That is definitely not what I want. I need a girlfriend, a fucking new car, some money in my pocket. I mean, that's what I thought when I was new. Those were the priorities when I was new. And but there's an easiness about me today. I feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't think about drinking. Are there times I do? Absolutely. I'm alcoholic. I mean, the book says that I have a daily reprieve, and that means that every day I've got to do something to ensure my sobriety. I mean, there's, a lot of people I got sober with are not sober, People leave for different reasons, Some people drink again, some people say they're not alcoholic. I don't know, I don't know what the real reason is. I just know that I don't want to roll that dice, and I need to do I need to do the same things that I did when I was new. Go to a meeting, call my sponsor, reach my hand out to a newcomer, pray in the morning, all those things I need to do today. And so, is that good? All right. All right, thanks.